certainly we heard and saw an attempted smear campaign on Mueller, and now many of the people, or at least the president, who was smearing Mueller and this investigation and this probe, is now saying that Mueller acted honorably. So again, which is it? Was he acting honorably, or did he act honorably, or was it a witch hunt? But anyway, what we know is essentially that now keep in mind, and again, this is the thing, and you go back even to when Hillary was being investigated, and you go back to that meeting on the tarmac, if you will, between Bill Clinton and Loretta Lynch, and which raised a lot of suspicion, and probably rightfully so. But keep in mind that what you have here in William Barr is you have the second Attorney General of Donald Trump. You have the first Attorney General, who was Jeff Sessions, who Trump almost constantly, once he recused himself from the Russia investigation, Trump almost constantly berated, publicly humiliated, and essentially ran off and forced Sessions to resign his post as Attorney General for, in Trump's eyes, not being loyal enough to him. And so, and it's very interesting that this from TheGuardian.com, that I don't know if I can find quickly the date here. The article was dated in December of last year, but before he was appointed or nominated as the Attorney General by Trump, Barr criticized the Mueller inquiry in a memo, in an unsolicited memo to the Justice Department. Barr had sent this memo, and he expressed concern with Mueller's investigation into whether the president obstructed justice. He was very, very concerned that there would be any kind of investigation into obstruction of justice by the President of the United States. And so then it probably isn't too much of a coincidence that when the decision, it would seem, came or fell on Barr, because, and again, it's interesting that you have these people, including Mitch McConnell, saying that the president has been completely exonerated. Well, he wasn't completely exonerated by Mueller, because he's not completely exonerated to begin with, because there's a number of investigations, Southern District of New York, State of New York, that are looking into Trump, that are looking into the Trump Foundation, Trump Organization. So even though, again, I do believe, as I've said, these people aren't held accountable or aren't legally held accountable or don't legally pay for much of anything. They get away with almost everything. But nevertheless, he is still under various investigations. But regardless what Trump says, regardless what Mitch McConnell or anyone else says, Mueller's, according to Barr, Mueller's findings were that he could not find anything necessarily to recommend an indictment or recommend pursuing any case of obstruction of justice against Trump, but he also could not say that Trump has been exonerated. So then it fell on Barr to say, well, basically, I'm going to exonerate Trump from obstruction of justice, the same man who criticized the Mueller investigation for even looking into whether or not Trump obstructed justice. But it's interesting to note as well, and then I think I want to get, rather than, I'll just touch on something that someone else said at a message board, and then kind of my own thoughts or addendum to that, which I posted on my own timeline, that when it came to the collusion angle, the only thing at least if we're to believe Mr. Barr, the only two things that Mueller really looked at was, did Trump and did Trump's associates have anything to do with, or were they working in concert with the Russians when it came to their various social media ads and social media campaign? And Mueller could not find, apparently, anything to indicate that they did. And were they involved at all into what we're told was the Russian hacking of the DNC? And Mueller could not find that they did. But again, the point being that was never what most people were looking at when it came to any collusion or attempted collusion between Trump, Trump's campaign, Trump's associates, Trump's family, and Russia. It would come down to, I will make quick reference of this, which basically is something I entirely agree with. It would come down to the things that Papadopoulos was trying to do, the things that Roger Stone was trying to seemingly coordinate with WikiLeaks, Jared Kushner, Paul Manafort, Donald Trump Jr. meeting at Trump Tower with the attorney who had connections to the Kremlin with supposed dirt on Hillary Clinton. And yet that either wasn't mentioned at all by Mueller, wasn't looked at all by Mueller. I find it hard to believe. But it certainly wasn't mentioned at all by Attorney General Barr. And again, I'll just hit on some high points as to why people thought there might be collusion, or why people were so troubled. And again, just hitting on the high points from Steve Wood, newsblender.com, some rhetorical questions, and it says, it doesn't concern you one little bit that so many people surrounding Trump had so many connections to Russia. It doesn't concern you one little bit that most of them lied about their various contacts with Russians during the campaign. It doesn't concern you one little bit that Manafort shared polling data with a Russian oligarch known to have direct connections to the Russian government, as most all Russian oligarchs do. It doesn't concern you one little bit that Stone practically bragged about working with WikiLeaks. It doesn't concern you one little bit that the Trump team changed the Republican platform in Russia's favor during the convention. It doesn't concern you one little bit that Don Jr. and other high-ranking members of the campaign met with a Russian to obtain dirt on Hillary, and then Trump dictated the lie about it. It doesn't concern you one little bit that Trump was negotiating a multi-million-dollar real estate deal in Moscow all during the campaign. Clearly a conflict of interest. It doesn't concern you one little bit that Trump lied about those very negotiations. It doesn't concern you one little bit that Trump has stuck up for and even publicly took the word of Putin over our own intelligence services. It doesn't concern you one little bit that Trump has met with Putin privately and no other American has any idea what was discussed. It doesn't concern you one little bit that Trump fired Comey with his own stated purpose of ending the Russian investigation. And it doesn't concern you one little bit that he then bragged about that to a couple of Russian diplomats shortly thereafter. And that's the thing. The whole idea of it being, the whole accusation of it being a witch hunt. And look, I don't know exactly what happened, and that's the thing. Still, none of us know exactly what happened. But Trump did it to himself. Over and over and over again, he did it to himself in so many ways to bring this investigation, to cause it to come to pass. Now, I want to just mention a couple of, again, troubling aspects to this as well regarding Barr. One of the things that is a conflict of interest as well here is this idea, or actually not this idea, but this from, I know it's the Huffington Post, but it's still nevertheless legitimate news when it comes to this story, that newly confirmed Attorney General, this back in February of this year, William Barr's son-in-law just left his job in the Justice Department for a post in the White House counsel's office, raising questions about a possible conflict of interest. So you have Barr's son-in-law, Tyler McGaughy, McGaughey, who was married to Barr's youngest daughter, who is now a legal representative, part of Trump's legal counsel. And when it comes to Barr himself, and again, the whole point of this is how our government works. This is how politics work. Both parties expressing periodic outrage and then hypocritically doing the same thing. Both parties pretending to be concerned and then just literally covering things up, helping each other out, working together, playing good cop, bad cop when it comes down to it. Now, this from Chuck Baldwin, who is, I gotta say, from what I've seen, he's pretty much right on it. A Christian conservative. I believe I don't know if he ran, I'm trying to remember if he actually ran for president at one point, but he's never, at least I don't think he's ever really bought into Trump. And he mentions Barr. This was when Barr was being put out there as the next Attorney General. This is a little bit about Barr's background. He says, William Barr is the swamp creature is the personification of all the evil and wickedness that has gone on in D.C. during the past 30 years, name the act of criminality, cover-up, or act of chicanery that has taken place in D.C. over the last 30 years, and William Barr is probably neck-deep in it. He was a full-time CIA operative. His career goal was to head the CIA. He became involved and close to George H.W. Bush, whose accomplishments already included the Bay of Pigs, Vietnam War, Golden Triangle narcotics, Nixon foreign policy, and the Watergate operation. Barr joined the CIA's legal office when George H.W. Bush became CIA director, and Bush's inner circle, again, several of whom likely involved with the Bay of Pigs, JFK assassination, numerous Southeast Asian operations, including Golden Triangle narco trafficking. Barr stonewalled and destroyed the Church Committee investigations into the CIA abuses, which, by the way, the CIA has been abusing for quite a long period of time, basically as long as there's been a CIA. Barr stonewalled and stopped inquiries in the CIA bombing assassination of a Chilean opposition leader. Barr joined George H.W. Bush's legal intelligence team during Bush's vice presidency. He was a key player in the Iran-Contra operation. In his Attorney General confirmation, he was Attorney General before, he vowed to attack criminal organizations, drug smugglers, and money launderers. It was all hot air. As Attorney General, Barr would preserve, protect, cover up, and nurture the apparatus that helped create and use Justice Department power to escape punishment. He stonewalled and stopped investigations into all Bush, Clinton, and CIA crimes, including CIA drug banking, the theft of Promise software, and all crimes of state committed by Bush. He provided legal cover for Bush's illegal foreign policy and war crimes. Co-conspirator in Ruby Ridge, according to this. And on it goes. He's a big fan of seizing people's property through civil asset forfeiture, a supporter of the Patriot Act, surveilling of Americans, and he's also perfectly okay with gun confiscation laws, red flag laws, banning bump stocks. This is not a man who was remotely conservative. This is not a man who respects the rule of law or the Constitution. It is a man who was a political appointment by Donald Trump. And that's what we need to get into, and that's what we always need to look at. If the Democrats have a appointed attorney general, a confirmed attorney general, who lets Hillary Clinton off the hook, and people believe that's what happened, why would then people ignore that the Republicans have a confirmed attorney general who just let Donald Trump off the hook? It's all politics, it's all chicanery, it's all a dog and pony show, it's all a circus, and we need to use our brains, and we need to think, and that's about all I have to say on that. This has been Jason Oz, American Faith Today.